Welcome. I'm Jill Jonathan with Red, Wine, and Blue, and we are a community of women who use digital media, friend-to-friend organizing to change the world one suburb at a time. Let's Dish is our Facebook Live show that explores what's going on in our states, and today I am talking to Team Ohio. So that is Crystal and Amy, also known as Creamy, if you want to be fun with it. So welcome, Crystal. Welcome, Amy. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing good today.
Good. Glad to hear it.
We had COVID in the house. I had COVID for the first time, at least the first time that I knew it. And I'm feeling much better today. So I feel like I've returned to the world of the living.
Oh, that's fantastic news. What about you, Crystal?
I'm feeling good. I mean, it's busy. It's the 2 days after Labor Day. So I'm feeling the heat of the electoral cycle pick up, which is both exhausting and exhilarating simultaneously. So I'm just, we're in hang on for dear life mode.
Yes, I feel that same way. I feel like I had such a restful long weekend yesterday. It took a little time to get back into it. And today I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. So before we start our conversation, I just want to show this video from an event that you guys had last week. And we talked about it where we had some Ohio candidates speak, including Governor candidate Nan Whaley. So she's in this video. So let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Woman in Ohio, this November is the most important election ever.
It's just pivotal this year. There are so many of our rights that are on the line.
What we saw come out of the Dobbs decision was the absolute largest governmental overreach into the private lives of American citizens in our lifetime, an attack on personal freedom and liberty.
The state is being governed by extremists and radicals around abortion access. And what that looks like right now in the state legislature is a bill that bans abortion at conception, bans birth control like IUD, and bans in vitro fertilization.
These are the things that are happening. These are the things that we need to look at.
It shows how extreme Ohio has become. And I don't believe in my heart that Ohio is as extreme as the legislature would lead us to believe.
We are not going to stop until we take our state back where women have freedom, they're protected, and they don't have the government mandating their pregnancies.
Right now, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I love that video, and it was such a great event, and I like what Nan Whaley says, we're not going to stop until we take our state back. So let's talk about that. How do we take our state back? And let's talk about the governor race. We have Nan Whaley versus Mike DeWine. So Crystal, go ahead, let me know what you think about these two candidates.
Yeah, so obviously we have our incumbent candidate, Governor Mike DeWine, who I like to call the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing. He looks very lovable, very squishy like a grandpa, but really truly in his heart of heart and in his policy decisions is an extremist, just like Nan said. Nan Whaley is our Democratic gubernatorial candidate. Cheryl Stevens is her lieutenant governor on her ticket, and just, I think, bring some real common sense solutions to some of the extreme legislation that, certainly goes through our Ohio legislature with a super majority of Republicans, both the House and the Senate. And then because Governor DeWine aligns with the state legislature in ideology and in practice, he signs those bills, no problem. One of those is the heartbeat bill. The heartbeat bill bans abortion after fetal heart rate is detected, which is somewhere around the time of 6 weeks. He, obviously it passed through both the House and the Senate of the state legislature, and he was happy to sign it. Up until very recently, he had on his website that he was Ohio's most pro-life governor ever, which I find to be fascinating. I also find it very fascinating that he has scrubbed that from his website, as we see suburban women, very upset about the overturn of Roe v. Wade and their rights, their bodily autonomy being threatened. Women and people who are childbearing are not going to stand for that. And they're seeing that, and that's why he scrubbed his website. So very excited that Nan is running. She's a champion for women and people who are childbearing in Ohio and will protect our bodily autonomy. And it was just a pleasure to get to have her at our Red, Wine, and Blue PAC event.
Yeah, I could see that too. And Amy, I want to go to you because DeWine in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I felt like as an Ohioan, he did a good job with keeping us safe in the beginning. And so I felt honestly a little surprised by that and felt grateful. But now I can see this shift, and maybe it's not a shift. Maybe it's just something that I didn't notice before. But Amy, what is your response to how he handled the pandemic, and then how he's responding to other things that affect us here in Ohio?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is a great conversation to have because I can echo the same sentiments that you had regarding DeWine's response to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. It felt, as an Ohioan, I felt relief. I felt like we were following science. We were sticking to mainstream scientific recommendations. We were kind of leading nationally in our response to it. We had an amazing Dr. Amy Acton, who became like a little overnight celebrity here in Ohio. And I think that that's what a lot of people remember and is sticking in their heads when it comes to what Governor DeWine is all about. He also just has a long-standing history in Ohio politics and a lot of name recognition. But I think that he's fallen from grace, and I think that it's not given the coverage that it deserves because it was on the news every single day in 2020. But the fact is that he really does stick to very extreme views. And I was saying the other day, I think that we've all been catfished by Governor Mike DeWine and baiting us all in with how he responded with the COVID-19 pandemic, and then showing his true colors of how extreme he is, pandering to extremist politicians at the legislature, and then not even standing behind what he has done. I mean, he's constantly being shown on record of having no comment when it comes to how these extreme policies affect everyday Ohioans. And so it was fantastic here from Nan. And I know that she is for common sense. She's for Ohioans, and she is for families in Ohio.
Yeah. And Crystal, I want to go to you because you mentioned him scrubbing his website, taking some things away, and he's not the only one that has been doing that. So tell me a little bit about what he had on his website and what has been taken away. And then how do you feel about that with candidates doing that?
Yeah, I think that's incredibly disturbing for a multitude of reasons. It means that, his values, or, what he publicizes are his values, change with the political tide. And as someone who's run for office, I find that deeply concerning because I, for one, want to project who I am and what I believe so that Ohioans know who they're electing to these positions and where they're going to land on these issues. And it really is dangerous to me to have someone who champions himself as being pro-life, the best pro-life governor in the history of Ohio, to now hiding that issue and kind of going dark on that issue so that Ohioans don't necessarily know or have access to how he feels if they don't know how to, look into the bills that he's championed, supported, and signed. I think we also see this with gun legislation. Mike DeWine, went to Dayton when Nan Whaley was the actual mayor of Dayton and said, oh, we have to do something after the shooting in the Oregon district. And then within the next year, signed a bill to allow permitless carry for Ohioans. That in no way, shape, or form makes Ohioans safer by allowing permitless carry. I thought that was asinine. Secondly, within 2 weeks of the shooting in Uvalde, he signed a bill to decrease, and I think we actually talked about this on Let's Dish. He signed HB 99, which decreases the amount of training that teachers have to participate in and take in order to be carrying a weapon inside of the school building in the classroom. So, you see him, you hear him say things, and then you see him do the exact opposite. So we cannot afford to get tricked by Mike DeWine anymore in Ohio. And I really feel like we need to just also shout out who the real champion of the COVID-19 protocols were for the state of Ohio. It was not Governor Mike DeWine, as evidence for his behavior after she left. It was, in fact, Dr. Amy Acton who led the charge against COVID-19. And we know that because immediately when she resigned, he reversed course on almost all of those COVID protocols. So cheers to Dr. Amy Acton. We appreciate you. We know who was behind the scenes making us safe during COVID, and it was not Governor Mike DeWine.
And I just want to talk about that. With what I really notice is this misleading messaging. So you mentioned pro-life, which that messaging is so misleading in my opinion. And so I feel like Governor DeWine kind of, I don't know, thrives on that misleading messaging. Like, oh, I'm pro-life, I'm for this. And then he goes ahead and makes our schools less safe. So Amy, can you just touch on that a little bit? And we talked about HB 454, which we do have a video. We'll show a little bit about that. But Amy, I just want to hear from you and about this misleading messaging that you feel like Governor DeWine is giving us.
Yeah, when it comes to scrubbing your website of what is now becoming wildly unpopular stances, I think it really highlights that it was never about your moral compass. It was more about being in your camp, sticking to an ideology and a radical extremist legislature. And it's about power and controlling people. And when I think that the Republicans are starting to see that this is wildly unpopular amongst women and it might come back to bite them in the ass, then yeah, they're going to scrub this and hope that we forget. But I think the thing that we're doing here at Red, White, and Blue is we're trying to make sure that you don't forget that this is who they are. They're showing us who they are every single day with this type of stuff. And we're not going to let them, pull the wool over our eyes and make us think that they believed in something different when this entire time they've been saying, these terrible extremist things.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted then lead into this video because we talked about the SAFE Act and how when you hear these things, you're like, the SAFE Act, that sounds like a good thing. But that's why you have to dig a little further and you have to understand what it really means. And at Red, Wine, and Blue, we're really trying to help everybody with that. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video. I think it's time for us to talk about House Bill 454, also known as the SAFE Act. For too long, politicians have been using transgender youth as the basis of their conservative movement. And part of this national wave of attacks is HB 454, a bill aimed at banning affirming healthcare for minors. So much of the conversation around gender-affirming care creates a false narrative about transgender youth in order to stir up fear. So let's dispel some of those false claims, shall we? The biggest falsity of all? The fact that it's called the SAFE Act. Denying gender-affirming care isn't safe, it's dangerous. Having access to gender-affirming care has shown to improve health outcomes and lower the risk of suicide for trans and non-binary youth. Gender-affirming care is any care that works to affirm someone's gender, which includes not only medical care, but mental health care as well. There's so much more we could say on the topic, but it all comes down to this. Gender-affirming care is safe, it's effective, it saves lives, and it is still legal in Ohio. So say no to House Bill 454 and take these easy actions to keep transgender youth safe in our state. So in my mind, we want to support all lives, right? We want to be pro-life for trans youth. We want to be pro-life for our students who are in our schools and to keep them safe and not put more guns in there. So I just want to show two quick graphics before we go. So we have one of DeWine, is something that we were talking about yesterday that kind of made us think of him. So Crystal, what do you have to say about this graphic? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Guys, from the first exact day that I saw Mike DeWine's face for the first time, I thought to myself, dear God, that's the actual turtle from Robin Hood. Like, that's him in human form. Or they created, he's an older gentleman. Let's be clear. Maybe they created the turtle based off of the face of Mike DeWine. All things are possible. So once I saw it, I can't unsee it. And I may or may not have requested that we put this graphic together.
Yeah, when you mentioned that and then we see it side by side, it just, you got to have some fun with this stuff. And then we had some fun with Nan Whaley. So we have a graphic there. So Amy, what do you think about this Nan Whaley as an American Girl doll?
I love this because it's completely true about Nan. She is a tall, imposing, but wonderful, warm woman who has a shelter dog named Louie. And so I think that this is all what we want at our legislature, not the old, hidden 1980s turtle.
Yeah.
All of us 90s kids are dying to see an actual American Girl doll be the governor of Ohio. That's like life, childhood dreams fulfilled.
I love that. So do you want an 80s turtle or do you want the American Girl doll? So think about that, what you actually want. So we like to have a little fun here. And then we also like to end with something positive, with a toast to joy, something we do on our Suburban Women Problem podcast. So I'll go ahead and start with my toast to joy. I was thinking about it this morning when I walked my 10-year-old to the bus stop. And my toast to joy is his bus driver, Miss Carol. She is amazing. And as a lot of us know, there's a teacher shortage. There's also a bus driver shortage. It's not an easy job. It's not for everybody, but Miss Carol pulls up on that bus. She says hi to the kids every day, big smile. And then on holidays, she actually will give them little toys. Everybody on the bus, she makes them feel included. And as a mom, seeing your kid off to school and just knowing that that's the first way that they're greeted before they go to school just makes my heart so warm. So my toast to joy is Miss Carol and all those amazing bus drivers out there. We so appreciate you and we see you. So Amy, what about you? What's your toast to joy?
I have to think about, I hadn't thought about it. I have to say, if you don't have an Ember mug, this brings me a lot of joy. My husband thought it was a bit of a frivolous thing when I asked him for it, but I got it for my birthday last year. And I'm telling you what, I think all you moms out there can agree with me. You can never get to your coffee or a hot cup of tea in time. You always need it to stay warm. And so my 6-year-old made this for me earlier. So I was on a meeting and she knew that I hadn't been feeling well and I still have a bit of scratchy throat. So she made it in my Ember cup. So that's my joy right now.
I love that. I think that's a great joy. What about you, Crystal?
I think my toast for joy this week, also big shout out to bus drivers. Miss Denise, you're amazing. We certainly do not scream that enough. We love to support teachers at Red, Wine, and Blue, but dang it, the transportation professionals are such an important part of the school culture and environment. So second that, Jill, but also that my buddy Amy is now testing negative for COVID.
Woohoo!
I'm very happy she's back because she is the better part of our team and I couldn't do life without her. So to Amy.
Let's all toast to that. And as a reminder, our Let's Dish Ohio happens here at noon, around noon, maybe 12:15 sometimes on Wednesdays. So mark your calendar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. If there's a topic you want us to talk about, we want to hear that. And be sure to follow us on social media because we'll keep you in the know and we're going to keep you inspired to keep going. So thanks for joining me, Amy and Crystal, and I'll see everybody next week. Thanks.
Yeah.